FDP was never going to make those interest payments.
No.
That was a setup from the day of closing.
Now,
So
remember what we talked about in December when we saw the councilman talking there, the alderman, that they would be paying the interest payments. That's something you're going to get out of this $4.5 million loan. You're at least going to get the interest payment. That was a flat out lie.
Well, here we are. Welcome back to Talking Racine. It's just the three of us this evening. We have Mr. George Myers, Mr. Jim Spodek, and I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen. Now, last episode we had our special guest, John Dickert, on, and some things have come up. We promised to have John again this week, and he will be back soon. He's in the next room gathering his thoughts. And there's some things that have come up regarding Machinery Row, which we hate to keep beating a dead horse, but it seems like every time we stop beating it, it shows a little life.
yeah.
And here we are again. So we're going to go through the timeline one more time. Well, one more time now. We might end up doing more of this again yet. God only knows.
There's so much involvement. There's so many particulars that keep coming to the
yes,
surface.
and it keeps winding back on itself. And
it's important, I think, for everyone to understand that are interested in the city of the type of, I'm just going to call them what they are, shenanigans that have been going on.
Yeah.
It's very devious, and it's costing us a lot of money. And that's why we want to bring this up again.
Yeah, this was destined to be done like a year ago. It was supposed to be completed. And really now that's all that's down there is weeds are growing, windows are being broken, you got some gang symbols sprayed on the side of the buildings.
Yeah. And there was even activity going on within these buildings. There were businesses operating there.
Yeah.
And they've all been chased out.
Right.
Yeah. they were some of them admittedly were struggling a little bit. You know, I mean, they were not.
No, I'm not saying they were.
But they were there. They were businesses.
There was activity.
It was a business community.
And it was on the tax roll.
On the tax rolls, right? And the properties were being taken care of.
Yep.
Now the properties are not being taken care of. It's off the tax rolls.
On the backs of the taxpayers.
Empty except for one. I guess there's still the baseball.
And the big message here is, you know, look what happened at Machinery Row. Do you really think that the arena project, the event center, or whatever they want to call it, do you really believe that's got a chance of being successful and causing prosperity in this community? Man,
I think this lends a lot to what they think is going on at the arena, and it's going to show that they're both foolish. They were foolish from the beginning, and they're foolhardy, and they're not simply not going to get us where we want to be. They're just sewage. They're tar pits for money.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it earlier, and you said something about this has really turned the community around, hasn't it? And I said, 360 degrees.
Yeah.
It's completely turned around. We're headed right back down the toilet where we were before they came up with this.
Millions
of dollars.
And
lower.
I suspect we'll be into $10 million by the time this is over.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of money. Now, listen, what I did was I found a video from the original when they voted on Machinery Row, and that was December the 17th, 2014. Now, this is before Machinery Row was in play. Now, we're going to go through and we're going to get some emails, and we're going to kind of show the timeline here and how the emails kind of fit into the timeline and actually what happened and what went into play here. And it's we touched around all the surfaces. Now we've got the emails that put this timeline in right exactly how it happened.
And one thing I would say, at 2014, we talked about there was activity going on there. At that point, there was still activity there, right?
Right.
And that's another thing that's going to come up in a future edition, probably. Whatever happened to those people that got kicked out of there? All right, but whatever.
Let's start.
Right now, 2014, what we're going to watch is the activity still going on, and there's some concern about this loan, this $4.5 million that we're giving to the city.
Yeah, well, let's just refresh everybody's memory. The whole thing started in April of 2014 when the options were taken out on the property, and then it was announced in June of 2014 that this big $65 million project was coming our way, and be happy. So why don't you go ahead and fire up that clip there, Jim, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
It's hard to believe it's been nearly a week since the executive committee was called to meet in regards to this development. We had not heard anything from the developer since last July when the proposal was first submitted to the council. At that time, we heard about the private-public endeavor that this would be, the commercial and residential development that was proposed. At that time, we were told a $9 million historic tax credit would be on the line, that we would have to make a decision by December 31st in order for the developer, not the city, to receive that $9 million historic tax credit. Fast forward from July until the first week in December, we had heard nothing. So when we convened in the executive committee last week to hear about the revised plans for the development, we're not hearing so much about a private-public endeavor. We're hearing about a public endeavor. All of the investment is public dollars. And those public dollars are an investment to achieve more public dollars for this development.
Okay.
Now, this is real critical. This is the meeting at which the council approves a $4.5 million loan to the developer.
Right.
And Alderman Widener is saying, hold on a second. This started off as a private-public
Development.
cooperative development, and now it's become just a public development, and she's talking about the $4.5 million. All of a sudden, the developer has no skin in the game. It's all taxpayer skin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said.
And she's asking, where is he?
Yeah.
She has no insight as to what's happening behind the scenes.
The stuff we're going to
Right.
talk about now, she at that time, she just had an intuition about it. She
Right.
said, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, but
all this money
all
is
this
going out,
information is
and we never
concealed.
see the developer. He never
Right.
shows up. Yeah.
Okay, so they announced it in June, and then this meeting is in December, and the developer has not been around.
Not been around.
And then it turns out that you've got an email there, Jim.
An email from, now we're talking September 25th, 2014. Now this is to one of the sellers of the property, Rick Olson. It's to him, and it says he is now sending back to the broker, or his name is Jim Bowman, and he was with FD.
He was working with Blackwell.
With Blackwell. It says, I received an option cancellation this morning through my attorney. Now I am really confused. I talked with both Gerda and Sam, and neither have a problem consenting to an extension as requested. In fact,
Now,
Sam
those
is
two
not.
people, by the way, are the other
Other
three
two.
people. They're three
Right.
properties. Okay, just so.
What happened? Please call. What happened was Blackwell ended the option. Said, this deal's done. I can't make this work. For whatever reason.
Now, this is 3 months prior to the statement we just heard by Sandy Widener.
Right.
All right. And she's not aware of this,
No.
apparently. No.
Nobody is.
Yeah.
Nobody.
There was an option. One of them just dropped off in, what was it, October of that year?
Right.
And then this is when one of the buyers finds out that it's gone. What happened to it?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Right. I'm confused. Why is this option?
The
There was a-
developer's gone, folks.
Right.
He's not in sight.
Machinery Row is dead.
And the council is now, several months after this email, is now going to approve $4.5 million to loan to this non-existent buyer, what Jim calls a straw man. In other
Yeah.
words, they had to set him up there to accept the $4, even though he's already let the option go. He has no interest in the project. That's the type of stuff that's costing us money.
But there is, in November of 2014, November 21st, another communication comes through, and FDP now is renewing the option.
Right.
But the basis under which he's renewing it is that not only does he not want to put down any more money on the option, but he wants the option money that he's put down
Right.
before returned to him.
Right. If this
Total of
deal doesn't
$30,000.
close. If this deal doesn't close. Now, I can tell you from just experience, once you're in a deal and you realize, I can't make this work, I can't get the funding, whatever it is, I got to let it go. Now he comes back. Nothing's changed for this guy. No miracle happened. The only miracle that's going to happen now is the city's now going to loan him $4.5 million to purchase his property. But it comes in on November 21st of 2014. And that's when you hear Sandy say, where has this developer been? And the reason is because he's really not there. This was now hatched by the city of Racine. They came to that developer and said, we'll loan you the money. And you can put this deal together and we can purchase that property down there, because obviously the city wanted this project to move forward. They had already announced it. They couldn't have it fall apart for egos, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know what the reason is.
Well, there was $9 million in historical tax credits on the line too, which they needed to have him in the game in order to extend it
But-
and keep those tax
Well,
credits.
I want to go back to this option money first. If you're all familiar with how real estate works, when you put an option out, you say, I'm going to buy your property. I'll give you $100 or $300, or in this case $5,000 to three different people, total of $15,000, as good faith that I will follow through on this. You know, if you will hold the property for me, don't let anybody else
Yeah,
buy
don't
it.
sell it to anyone else.
I'm gonna do it. Well, he let that first one lapse. So he said, okay, hold a second, wait a second. I'm still interested. I'll pay you another $15,000. That's $5,000 each, and so he's given another. So he's got $30,000 into it. Finally says, that's not going to make it. I can't make it go. So I'll lose it. He's going to lose the $30,000. Then the city says, but we need you to buy these properties because we want to keep this thing going. Now it gets really, really fun, because his next option says, I'll give you another option, but this time I'm not putting anything down.
And I want the
Not only
original
that,
30
but
back.
if this option doesn't go through, you pay me back that $30,000. Now that is really wild, folks.
That's
That has
wild.
gone
That
beyond
doesn't
the
happen.
pale.
He knew.
That doesn't happen in real estate.
No, but he knew, because Dickert, Friedel probably let me cut him a deal and said, we're going to loan you that money. Now, let's move to the next stage of it.
I would just like to say, talk to any realtor that you know,
Yeah.
talk to any lawyer you know, to ask them about these options. An option that says nothing down, and if I don't follow through on this option, guess
Give my
what?
money.
You're going to give me
better,
$3,000.
nobody ever
Or
gets
better
money.
yet, you try to get an option down payment back. You find out how that, works.
That is too
So
beautiful.
now they cut this deal. I know that he's now the straw man, Blackwell. That's why all this development, he's coming, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, nothing's going to happen because he's not in this deal. It's the city deal, but they need to get the public behind this.
They can't. Yeah, they can't sell it to. The city cannot outright buy it from these buyers
Exactly.
for whatever reason. So they have to set him up so that he actually buys it.
And that's what a classic straw man is.
Yeah, that's your straw man.
exactly what it is.
And then if he fails on that, there's more to the story. But go ahead, Jim.
On the 10th of December 2014, now this is 3 days before the Common Council is to meet to approve the $4.5 million, the JT, Journal-Times, comes out and breaks the story that the city is going to loan $4.5 million to FDP Properties, or Rodney Blackwell's company. And in the article it states that they will make interest payments, that they're going to put $200,000 in an account to pay the interest payments on the 1, 2, or 3%, whatever it was, on that loan.
Now, when you say they, you're talking about FDP Properties
right.
is going to put on.
That's Rodney Blackwell.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
He's going to pay this interest because we're going to loan it
Right.
to him until the big loan shows up later down the road when the big construction starts. The city's going to get paid back.
Yeah. So
they-
don't worry about do the $4.5 million.
Right.
We're going to get the interest payments. He's coming through. In the meantime, he's already dropped out.
He's gone. He's gone.
Months before this, he's dropped out.
Now,
But
yep.
this is what the city administrator has come forward with, and the city attorneys have come forward with, and said this is what the new deal is.
Now, when they
Yeah.
say, "Oh, we didn't know anything about this," there's emails here with Tom Friedel, John Dickert as CC'd on these emails on the November 21st option. So these guys knew what was going on. There's no doubt about it. They floated that story to the JT. The JT bit and put it in. The Common Council meeting comes on the 17th of December, and the pressure starts to press. The pressure's on now.
And that,
You
that,
gotta
that you
approve
heard what
it.
Sandy. That was
Yeah.
the first little excerpt we heard was Sandy Widener on this December 17th meeting. Now,
Right.
now we're going to get an example of some of the pressure that's
Right.
coming.
So I'm going to play a little bit. Now, this is what was going on at that meeting. The pressure was on. Dickert and the administration had poised everything for this huge development. We have to loan them the money. And
And
this
they
is
had an alderman pushing it too,
Absolutely.
and we're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
hear from one of them right now.
Deferral kills this. We don't need to decide by the end of the year. The deal needs to close by the end of the year. Next week, in case anybody hasn't noticed, is Christmas. There are 2 working days basically killed, possibly the third one, the Friday after, depending on who you're talking to. I know I'm not working on Friday. But anyway, there are title things that need to be finished up. There's work with attorneys. The agreement needs to be inked and ready to roll. And they have to get together with a closing title company or wherever you do the closing, exchange checks, do all that kind of stuff by December 31st in order to guarantee these tax credits. I'm speaking against deferral because obviously I'm in favor of the project.
There you see it. There's the pressure. All Sandy was looking for at that time was deferral.
Exactly.
Let's just take some more time
Let's
to
take some
look at
time.
this.
This is a big
and
rush.
it needed it.
Find out what's going on with the developer. Make sure this thing is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, there were too many wild variables flying around saying this is not making sense, and I could see we're showing you things now that were going on behind the scenes. She was just kind of picking it up a little bit here, a little bit there, but there were things that needed to be revealed.
And there was former Alderman Greg Helding who was speaking out so strongly in favor of Machinery Row, and you may remember him as being highly in favor of the arena project now. The guy is just amassing a wonderful record with your money. Now, when they did the vote, we don't actually have the vote on there, but our recollection is that there were 3 aldermen who voted against approving this loan at this meeting, and that was Sandy Widener, Michael Shields, and Eddie Deal. And Shields and Deal have both been
eradicated.
Yeah, they've been opposition was put up against them, and they were replaced on the city council. And somebody ran against Sandy Widener too, but
she was a little strong for the opposition they got there. But the other 2. For whatever reason, the point was there was an administrative, John Dickard or someone there put up candidates to get these aldermen off their seats.
Yeah,
and
just remember these are people who were opposed to it, and 2 of them are gone, and the third one was tried to be gotten rid of.
Right. Now let's move on.
Yes, good idea.
It gets approved. The $4.5 million gets approved on the 17th of December 2014. Now, as you heard Greg Helding say, we got to have checks. People are going to, we got to do this closing, and there's a lot of stuff to do. Now we're talking about Christmas, so we're talking about a limited amount of time. It's a great opportunity to slip stuff through. Nobody's watching. Everybody's out Christmas shopping, different things.
Yeah.
Right. And this was a rush job. So the closing is for the 30th of December 2014.
Now that is just 13 days after this.
Right.
After this year.
2 weeks.
It's 5 days after Christmas, so we're in the middle of the holidays right there.
Now, on the 28th of December, now one of the sellers, again, Rick Olson, from his attorney, Judd Wyatt, sends an email to Rick. Now, this is CC to the city's attorney who hired outside Aline Sutton-Ekus, and Rick Olson got CC'd, but it was, apparently they sent a closing statement, meaning this is how we're going to close, and, for the seller, which was Olson. And in it, Judd Lee Wyatt, who is Olson's attorney, sends an email back to the closing attorney for Blackwell and says, the provision is not acceptable. 10% of the purchase price or $150,000 credit for costs associated with environmental remediation of the property. Meaning, they want a 10% kickback for environmental issues.
Well, that's what Blackwell and Associates are presenting to them.
Correct.
They're
presenting that to them, and he's saying, hey, wait a sec. We never talked about a 10%, kickback.
Mm-hmm.
Olson's saying, hey, whatever. I'm not kicking back.
No, Olson's one of the sellers.
Yeah.
One of the sellers.
Property owner.
So this is just his property.
That's just his.
Yeah.
That's just his. But it also went to Sam
Azarian. The other two, right.
It applied to him. They apparently, now, as we dug into this a little deeper, Olson comes back and says, hey, I had to sell because I'm up against the wall. They got me, buried. All my stuff is out of there. I'm out of business, and they've kind of got me, backed up.
And the taxes are accumulating.
Right. So he agrees to it. So What happens though,
As do the other two.
as to the other
Yeah.
ones, now they're all going to close, but on this particular one, now we're talking about the 30th of December. Now we're talking 2 days later. An email comes from Blackwell's attorney to Judley Wyatt, and the attorney that is representing Blackwell, now you have to remember, Blackwell's nowhere to be seen. This is all being done, but it's a Milwaukee attorney. None of this is being handled even by Blackwell. Apparently he didn't even show up at closing, and the broker, Bowman, showed up and picked up a check. But it says, "Hi, Judd. Rodney," it says, "please get me a revised closing statement." They agreed to the kickback of $150,000. "Please get me a revised closing statement and closing documents as soon as you can. We will need to speak to Elaine." Now, Elaine was representing the city.
Right, she's an attorney.
She's the outside attorney that
Right.
the city hired.
To see
Okay.
if the city is comfortable with lowering the purchase price to 1.35, but keeping the loan amount at 1.5 to
Now,
fund the reserve.
Now, folks, this is where it gets really unusual, because they're going to lower the purchase price from $1.5 million down to $1.35 million. They're going to lower the purchase price, but they're going to keep the loan the same.
So they're taking
Yeah.
the money from the city. They're not telling the city, "Hey,
Now, that
reduce
is
it.
not. When was the last time you bought something for a certain price, or heard of somebody buying something like that for $2 million and getting a loan to buy that thing from the bank for $3 million? In other words, for more than what you're actually buying it for. That gets real shaky.
And
That-
this is just on the one property.
and that's just on the
Right.
one, the 1.35 to 1.5. It was done with all of them, though.
all of
Yeah.
All three had
The amount-
similar
Yeah,
amounts.
there were $4.5 million in the loan, and $450,000 was rebated back, kicked back to the purchaser.
In other words, the sales price showed like $4,050,000.
No, no.
Right.
Four-
Well, the
$4
sale
million.
price was
The sales price was $4,050,000.
The actual sell.
And the actual loan was $4,500,000. That's just like
Oh,
this
okay.
one.
Yeah,
That's
you're right. You're
so
right.
that's how the kickback was perpetrated. Was that we sold it to you for, let's say, $3, but we got a loan for $4.
Right.
Now the other dollar went to us.
Right.
Well, and it was going to be used for interest and
Well, no, because it was sold to the Common Council, the RDA, and the public that Blackwell is going to pay the interest payments.
yeah, he's going to set up.
Blackwell's paying the interest payment.
Right.
This is some maybe environmental things. There's some
Right,
additional-
right. You know,
so-
nobody
alleged-
knows what's
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
But if we're doing a little digging, I pulled up the developers agreement. In the developers agreement, which I might add gets recorded well into the period of time, they write in there, as it's written into the developers agreement, that an escrow account is set up, and that escrow account will be used for taxes, interest payments. So this was all a setup. Blackwell or FDP was never going to make those interest payments.
No.
That was a setup from the day of closing.
Now,
So
remember what we talked about in December when we saw the councilman talking there, the alderman, that they would be paying the interest payments. That's something you're going to get out of this $4.5 million loan. You're
Right.
at least going to get the interest payment. That was a flat out lie, because just the developer's statement had already been filed saying that those interest payments were coming from this excess that they were
Right.
borrowing.
and no one knows this excess. I mean, the city in the Common Council.
Well, somebody in the city did.
Well, I believe the upper management of the city knew exactly what was going on when this was here. When that attorney asked, "Are they comfortable with lowering the purchase price?" That attorney knows what's going on, and
Yeah.
he's covering himself to say, "If you guys are willing to do this, I don't care. It's not on my back." But the city.
And the people who knew it are copied in this
Right.
particular email,
But you notice
which
they
includes the mayor
right now
and Tom Friedel, the city
Right.
administrator.
they all know. They all
They
know.
all knew.
Well, they're-
I don't see
they're
the
actually the
I don't see the
developers.
alderman in that.
Right.
Yeah, when you say they all knew, you're talking about the administration,
Right.
not the alderman.
No.
Not the redevelopment authority.
No.
No.
Just the
No,
administration.
this was a typical straw man deal where they put him, and even Blackwell probably didn't know a hell of a lot what was going on. To be quite
He
frank,
probably didn't care.
no, he didn't care. What's the difference? Not only that, now the $450,000 goes into this escrow account, But guess who gets their money back? Blackwell gets a check out of there for $30,000 to cover those options.
There's the options. That's how
Right,
you
he
got
gets
the
his money
options
back. So this is like, hey, I get my money back. I have absolutely no money in this deal. Bowen, his real estate broker partner, that's a whole other thing. He gets $70,000 out of it. Now, Blackwell's moving along here. He doesn't care. He's not going to pay the taxes. Of course, there's some things that went on. We can go into the escrow account later, but the fact is that this escrow account was set up here like a slush fund. That's really what you'd call it. Now, we're going to play a little bit later on here, and this is now a year and a half later on the Common Council floor. Alderman Widener comes up and asks some questions. Now, she finds out that they had a slush fund.
Mr. Blackwell borrowed money from the city of Racine, cut a different deal with the sellers of the property, set up an escrow account for him to draw money out of over the last year and a half. I had no idea that I should even have asked the question of the administration if something like this would have happened. When this came to light, this is where, the city administrator kept saying to us, the council, well, he's paying his interest payments. He paid his interest payments with money that he took from the sellers that he renegotiated after we loaned him the $4.5 million. So in essence, we are paying that because we loaned him that money. I want us to have our eyes wide open about what kind of a developer we're giving another extension to. He didn't even have the respect for this city or this administration that negotiated with him or this council to come before us within that first 4 months when his extension had expired.
So this is actually 2 years after,
Right.
almost to the day.
And when she
Oh, no,
says,
I'm sorry.
when
It's a year and 10 months.
When she says the city, he's not going to develop. He's not
Right.
going to deliver.
Right,
Right.
he's not going to deliver.
Spot on. She knew at this point that it was a gone deal, lost deal.
Well, the thing is, he didn't have the respect to come and renew the note. He didn't have nothing to do. He was the straw man. He doesn't renew the note. This was all orchestrated by Friedel, Dickard, probably Letney. This is who was pulling the strings on this deal. They knew what was going on. They had gotten to the point now they had hoped another developer or they could whip up some magic, I guess, and get this thing developed. It wasn't going to happen, and it just kept getting worse.
And in the
worse.
meantime, Friedel, the city administrator, is lying to the council, saying, well, don't worry about it. He's paying his interest payment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to a certain point where, wait a second, we still don't have a developer, it's a year later, now the interest payment argument's getting a little bit weak, and Alderman Widener points out he was never paying them all along.
Well,
so
I
it was coming
remember
out of
her-
that slush fund.
I remember her questioning a couple times, about is this guy keeping up his payments and where's the money coming from? And Friedel responding, oh he's paying the interest
The
on
interest
it.
payments are being made, and I think we even checked on it, and yeah, they were being made. Well, we never knew that this was a slush fund that they had actually taken from the sellers to create
Yeah,
this.
you could show that they were
Yeah.
being paid. You couldn't see the source of the payment, which happened to be the city taxpayers.
So now it's a year and 10 months later, and again they want to keep this thing alive, and it's so important because they got these $9 million tax credits that are
Right.
still dangling out
Right.
there.
I mean, this is 2 years later. Just hurry up to these tax
Had
credits
to
are
do it in
still hanging out there.
Had to do it 2 years earlier
Right.
in December to save those tax credits, and then the whole thing just goes to crap, and now they're still trying to keep it alive, to keep those
Well,
tax
you know, the
credits
thing
in play.
all along at this period was, if you remember right, I mean, it had, well, Machinery Row is going to start now, and then they're starting some work on
Right.
Machinery Row. They're surveying Machinery Row. They're going to demolition part of the building on Machinery Row. Well, that developer was never around. He was never there.
No.
He never intended to do this development. It was a scam from day one. And after that option expired, he knew right then and there. I
From
got
that point
30,000
on,
in. That was over.
It was dead.
You
And
know-
that goes back 2 years prior to this.
And I remember looking at this deal, and then when I realized there was a kickback here, I thought, well, he scammed a kickback. It wasn't Blackwell who put that deal together.
Mm-hmm.
That was the administration. That's your own city government that was kicking that. that
I
did
think
that.
it was. I
I
think
think
they had sold themselves that this was going to be a successful. This was going to bring the city back.
Right.
I mean, Rootworks was in
High
going
gear.
on, and they had pictures of the people walking on that promenade, along the river. I mean, there was all the evidence right there. You could see it in that picture and that drawing that this was going to be a success and this was going to bring wealth to the city, which, economically speaking, is totally stupid.
Right.
You don't
Never gonna
work at that end of the economic
That's another
cycle
whole
to get
2
together.
shows,
Yeah, right. but I mean, you just that or the arena. This is the arena is like Machinery Row
It is.
in the early stages.
Right, exactly.
We,
You know
we
who
got-
else is
how
in the
much we
early
got
stages?
in arena now?
I think Foxconn isn't far behind. There's another one. Hurry up! We got to get that $3 billion and give it away. Whenever anything goes that fast, when there's some kind of a hurry up, this fear of loss, there's always a problem.
Well, and that's the nice thing about the small businesses. When they come in, of course, we put barriers to them. Hey, you got to jump over this hoop and this hoop, and wait, there's a couple more hoops down the road there, and you got to jump through before we're going to let you open. And that's where the real strength comes, because those people don't come in looking for any millions
hard,
of dollars of
a lot of hours.
And they are truly legitimate business, and not these people that come in asking for lots of city money. I mean, Jim, you said that I think he made a comment off camera. Said these guys are good.
Yeah, they are good.
They know how to scam really good, man. They know their game.
Did we have any more clips that we wanted to
No,
play?
I think that's about it. I can't take it anymore. I mean, there's more to this whole story. It goes even deeper than this. We'll get into that a little bit later, but there's even more money, more losses, and more coming.
Well, now we've learned that Blackwell actually has signed the deeds over to the city.
That's just recently found that out. And actually, he did it 7 months ago. Nobody knows who owns the property. Nobody can find it out. Now, all of a sudden, we've actually talked to Blackwell. We didn't, but it was conveyed to us that it was signed over 7 months ago.
And
didn't see
I
an
hope
announcement
you
in
all
the
see
paper.
what a sad situation that is. But there are people in City Hall think that's really cool because now we own some more property.
Yeah.
These people building empire. They look at our assets have increased,
Right.
and we have so many properties. The city taxpayers off the city tax rolls, in the city's ownership. Throughout the city, it's just we have really lost our way,
Yes,
and
we
somehow we've got to get this straightened out.
It's all Baltic Avenue, though. There's no boardwalk and Park Place in there.
No, that's right. Mediterranean and Baltic. All right.
Okay, well, that's it for this evening. Say goodnight to our guests, gentlemen.
Hope you learn. You might not have been the most enjoyable show we did, but we hope at least get
a little bit of insight of what happened there.
It's important that we all know this.
Yeah, Hank, thanks for hanging in there with us, and as things develop, we'll be back and bring you that. And next week, John Dickert is making a return, hopefully.
Hopefully he's not too busy.
Okay, we'll see you then, folks.
All right.
Thanks again.